you all, and it's really gratifying to see so many of you here to join us in this discussion about a really important topic. And I want to talk this morning about human-scale economies and the idea of community. Every Tuesday evening from June through September, the Bogart Farmers Market in Bozeman, Montana plays host to a variety of local vendors. While many farmers markets are primarily outlets for fresh produce, Bogart is that and much more. Yes, you can buy fresh tomatoes, blueberries, and squash. You can buy local honey, grass-fed beef, and a variety of locally made cheeses. That's only the beginning. An array of local restaurants has stalls where they cook up their specialties to order. A jewelry maker sells her wares and takes orders for custom-made pieces. A tall Mennonite man with a bushy white beard sells fresh bread, standing alongside his wife wearing a long print dress and a headscarf. Another couple, he, a former surgeon, sells products made from alpaca wool that they raise on their ranch outside of town. Behind their stall, 3 alpacas in a pen crane their long necks to catch a glimpse of the passing crowd. Another young couple sells fresh guacamole in jars of salsa, homemade. Not sure you want to buy it? Well, try the free samples. Then chat with the merchants, who are the very people who make the product. In addition, a small band is set up in a corner where the bearded singer croons oldies, and around the corner, parents are playing bingo with kids at a table. The carnival-like atmosphere as the hipsters mingle with the Birkenstock crowd, and the families with children munch on gyros while chatting with friends. The smells of cooking food mingle with the sounds of laughter and homemade music. Or consider the Berkshire. According to the website, Berkshires are a local currency. It's serving the Berkshire region of Massachusetts, dubbed by the New York Times as, quote, a great economic experiment. Berkshires are a tool for community empowerment, enabling merchants and consumers to plant the seeds for an alternative economic future for their community. Launched back in the fall of 2006, Berkshires had a robust initiation with over 1 million Berkshires having been circulated in the first 9 months and over 2.7 million more to date. Currently, more than 400 businesses within a very small geographical area have signed up to accept the currency. 5 different banks have partnered with Berkshires with a total of 13 branch offices now serving as exchange stations. For Berkshires, according to the website, this is only the beginning. Future plans could involve Berkshires checking accounts, electronic transfer of funds, ATM machines, and even a loan program to facilitate the creation of new and local businesses manufacturing more of the goods that are used locally. Now, what does the Bogart Farmers Market and Berkshires have in common? Well, both are efforts to generate locally economic activity and keep both the money and the products circulating in the community. And these are not isolated examples. According to USDA, in 1994, there were 1,755 farmers markets operating in the United States. Today, there are 7,175 total, and that represents a 17% increase just from last year. This trend suggests that in recent years, something really significant is going on. Now, of course, while not as widespread yet as farmers markets, local currencies can be found in California, New York, Michigan, Oregon, North Carolina, Pennsylvania, Wisconsin, and, of course, Massachusetts. According to Craigslist, the usage of the barter section of its site increased more than 100% between April 2008 and April 2009. Craigslist's commentary claims that this uptick is typical in difficult economic times. A barter economy, of course, involves an exchange of goods and skills, and even if the participants in the exchange don't know each other, as is the case with most exchanges facilitated by Craigslist, there's generally at least a moment of personal contact when the exchange occurs. Much bartering, however, takes place between friends and neighbors, where the exchange is merely one aspect of an ongoing relationship of proximity and familiarity. Barter generally involves the exchange of real goods and real services. A person must either possess some skill or some property to participate. I can, for example, agree to exchange some of the produce from my garden for some electrical work in my basement. In this case, I have the land, the time, and the skill to grow food, and my friend has the skill and the tools to solve my electrical problems. Economic abstractions, so common in our modern globalizing economy, have little place in a barter economy or local economies more generally. Now, bartering is really only a bit more formal than what happens between neighbors every day. When my neighbor borrows a cup of sugar, she doesn't return the next day with a replacement cup. I give her the sugar with the tacit understanding that when I need to borrow something, I can knock on her door. This is sort of exchange without defined terms or timelines is simply one aspect of neighborliness. And it goes on all around it. Barter, in however way we look at it, involves at least two components. Some level of proximity and familiarity, ranging from the one-time exchange on Craigslist to the ongoing system of exchange between neighbors. And second, the exchange of real, concrete goods and services tied to the possession of desired goods and skills. An added benefit of those kinds of exchanges is that they occur outside the auspices of the IRS. A barter economy is difficult to tax, which is not to say that the IRS doesn't try. You can look and find information on how to claim your barter benefits and liabilities. The personal element in a farmer's market, a local currency, or a barter economy introduces a layer of responsibility into the exchange that is much more tenuous and often simply absent in economies of larger scale. The cashier at the big box retailer often has no idea where the merchandise I purchase comes from, who made it, and often really doesn't care whether or not I will like it when I open the plastic carton. The cashier, as well as the people who stock the shelves and drive the trucks, they tend to be merely incidental functionaries in an anonymous system that allows the parties involved in the exchange to forego any personal responsibility for the quality of the product or the satisfaction of the customer. Of course, the owners of the corporation have an interest in my continuing as a customer, but the personal element is not present. Instead, I'm removed from the owners by many layers of paid employees who care about jobs, to be sure, but have little, again, personal regard for the customers or the products that run through their scanners. Things are quite different if you just go to a local farmer's market, where the seller is intimately involved in growing the food he is selling, where he looks his customers in the eye, tells them about his farm and the method he uses, and offers a free sample of his produce. He will tend to feel a personal responsibility for the satisfaction of his customers, a pride in his product. And this, in turn, fosters affection, or at the very least, a profound sense of interdependence, and possibly even mutual gratitude. Small-scale economies also tend to foster local knowledge in a way that economies of scale simply cannot. Well, it's true, of course, that Walmart sells snowblowers in the north and Hardee's sells country ham biscuits in the south. The kind of local particularities that make local communities unique, interesting, and sustainable are the very things that are best understood and cultivated by local economies. When a local community loses its unique sense of itself, when the Applebee's, Home Depot, and Walmart come to represent the community to itself, then there's less to distinguish one community from another. They become interchangeable, and therefore commitment to one comes to seem merely an oddity of personality rather than a product of love for the particular qualities and eccentricities even of a real place. To truly inhabit such a place requires time, commitment, and a growing knowledge of the very things that cannot be known by the giant retailer with a national and global customer base. A robust local economy turns on concrete goods and skills in a way that the world of derivatives, options, currency markets, and international banking does not. The farmer, the plumber, the maker of handmade crafts, the local restaurateur the neighbor with a cup of sugar, are in touch with the real, tangible world of work and reward and generosity and gratitude. I would suggest that we might even be able to gain a much better understanding of our ongoing global now economic troubles if we considered the various problems as a systematic denial of the idea of human scale and a corresponding embrace of what the economist Willem Rupke called the cult of the colossal. The scale has exceeded our grasp, and the concrete realities of local markets have faded into abstractions that neither call forth our loyalty nor bind us to the communities we inhabit. Even the structure of the modern corporation, in terms of scale and structure itself, I think tends to foster both anonymity and ignorance, two conditions that are all too common in economies of scale. Consider this just from the standpoint of the shareholder. An investor purchases part of the corporation in the form of shares and looks forward to appreciation of the shares, regular dividends, and maybe both. Typically receives an annual business report that may include an opportunity to vote on officers who likely research the financial strength of the company, perhaps its business practices and commitments. These are important, but they tend to be removed from the daily, immediate concerns of the shareholder, whose involvement is removed from the real business of the corporation. The default position, the natural position, really, is ignorance about everything but the bottom line. If my shares appreciate during the year, all is good. If not, the company must be doing something wrong. This anonymity and ignorance expand dramatically when the shares are held as part of a mutual fund, which is the way most Americans hold stock today. When the mutual fund holds an assortment of stocks, say an index fund that holds pieces from all stocks of a certain exchange, anonymity and ignorance are almost impossible to avoid. The very way we hold wealth and hope that it grows is undergirded by a system that encourages the very dispositions that are harmful all too often to local communities. If I own shares in a mutual fund that owns shares in a corporation, that by virtue of its lobbying power promotes regulations that drive small businesses out of the market, I'm complicit in the act, even if I intentionally shop at the small businesses in my neighborhood. In fact, I can feel good about myself for my shopping habits, even as my investment habits serve to undermine my own local economy, and therefore weaken my own community. An economy of such massive scale that local communities and people are seen as mere markets to be tapped, rather than neighbors with whom we must live, has lost sight of the fact that the purpose of an economy is not to grow, but to facilitate human flourishing. An economy exists for the sake of well-being, and not for its own sake, or for an abstraction such as the GDP. If an economy is rooted in anonymity and ignorance, it is necessarily going to tend towards the abusive. For well-being requires well-doing, and well-doing is rooted in particular knowledge and ultimately in wisdom. Consider this. Between January 1st and October 11th of 2008, U.S. corporations lost nearly $8 trillion, over 40% of their value. Net worth plummeted, retirement accounts were decimated. Many Americans were forced to reorder their lives to compensate for this dramatic loss in wealth. Many more were forced to confront the hard truth that their wealth was far less secure than they had imagined, because of, or perhaps in spite of, massive government efforts to fix the economy. The stock market rebounded fair amounts, although global instability today suggests we may not yet be out of the storm. With all this, we're left with an obvious question. If the ownership of private property lies at the heart of the free market system, and if private property can simply evaporate overnight, then is our way of life as fragile and capricious as the stock market? Could it be that our understanding of private property itself has changed so radically that what we take for private property today is a mere shadow of the real thing? One element of our trouble is that we have a muddled understanding of property itself. The tremendous increase in buying power and a corresponding increase in standards of living have, in the course of the 20th century, radically changed the way we live and think. We've come to imagine that money is the same as property, and spending our money on consumables is as good as using it to secure a piece of real property. However, property and wealth are not the same thing. And the one way to see this, perhaps, is by considering their respective range of uses. The value of abstract property, wealth, or paper wealth can only be realized in exchange. One must sell one's shares in order to make a profit. On the other hand, real, tangible property has both a use value as well as an exchange value. Land or the tools of one's trade can all be sold in the marketplace, assuming there's a buyer, but additionally, their value can be realized apart from exchange. I can work my land and produce food for myself and my family. With my tools, I can build a chair, sit in, even a house to live in. I can create marketable items and sell them through my business. Property characterized by use value is a form of property suited to independence, for it provides the owner with a broader effective control than property suited merely to exchange. Strong local economies tend by natural necessity to traffic more closely and consistently in real property, while our current global economy tends by necessity to countenance abstract wealth, which is, as we have seen, increasingly ephemeral. Real property accomplishes three crucial things that mere wealth does for us well. First, real property necessarily connects its owner to a particular place. In so doing, it fosters a kind of natural vitality that is only possible when embodied creatures engage the world of concrete things and places. Consider this simple example. I have, so I am told, a 401k. But where is it? I frankly have no idea. I receive a report once a year telling me how much has grown or how much it hasn't grown. But other than that, it's something I own, but I have almost no connection to. On the other hand, consider a piece of land or a small business. I know where that is. I can identify myself with it. I can put my name on a product. I can practice neighborliness by giving away some of what I produce. I can even defend it if needed. For the tangible reality of this property gives me purchase in the world. It gives me, quite literally, a place to stand. Second, real property fosters certain virtues, and when broadly held and appreciated, cultivates a different kind of society than one where real property, where it has been largely replaced by abstract property. Virtues like self-reliance, thrift, neighborliness, self-control. Virtues our grandmothers preached and often practiced are best cultivated in the context of real property. Abstract property, however, if we are not careful, tends to underwrite what the sociologist Robert Nisbet called the loose individual. Such people, according to Nisbet, are finally committed to no particular place at all. The focus of the loose individual is getting ahead. Long-term affiliations, if they impede that goal, will be disregarded. Abstract property can foster the loose individual. Real property tends to encourage long-term commitment and more stable communities. Finally, robust local economies grounded in the ownership of real, concrete property serves to protect democracy from its hidden demons. Here's what I mean. When democratic forms of government are enjoyed by broadly propertied citizens, the respect for private property fostered by personal ownership will help to restrain the populace from attempting to harness the mechanisms of democracy to redistribute property. On the other hand, if a critical mass of citizens are without property, they will eventually learn that the democratic process can yield up a bountiful supply of goodies. When the state is the size of the modern nation state, it's not immediately apparent that property being taken from one and given to another is really being taken from any particular person. This anonymous taking and the possibility thereof undermines the culture of private property upon which so much hangs. According to Wilhelm Röpke, quote, "It was Jefferson's nightmare that the peasants and workers who comprise the population of the United States of America at the end of the 18th century would become changed one day into a propertyless and nomadic proletariat on the one hand and a capitalist plutocracy on the other. This nightmare, Klumpke wrote, has come true within 3 generations. Close quote. A key component in fostering healthy communities, then, is to revitalize private property. One task is to show how the ideals of a property state can be realized within the complexities of the 21st century. This is a significant challenge. Nevertheless, healthy communities, as well as a healthy democracy, depend on a property citizenry. Thank you.